Why didn't Gandalf tell the dwarves about Durin's ring? And did his choice not to tell them cost many dwarves their lives? Even Gimli was once on a quest involving this dwarven ring of power. It was the first of the 7 dwarf rings to be created and the last one unaccounted for. This is revealed by Gimli's father Glóin during the Council of Elrond in Rivendell. Still, it might be well for all, said Glóin the dwarf, if all these strengths were joined and the powers of each were used in league. Other rings there may be, less treacherous, that may be used in our need. The 7 are lost to us, if Balin has not found the ring of Thror, which was the last. Naught has been heard of it since Thror perished in Moria. Indeed, I may now reveal that it was partly in hope to find that ring that Balin went away. You may remember that Balin was one of the members of Thorin and company who traveled with Gandalf and Bilbo to the Lonely Mountain to reclaim their kingdom from the dragon Smog. After taking back the mountain, Balin and a settlement of dwarves decided to travel west to the Misty Mountains to retake Moria. This is why Gimli and Glóin set out on their quest to Rivendell, to find any news of Balin's settlement in Moria and also to warn the elves of Sauron's offer of friendship to the dwarves. Now, Moria was significant because of the mines that were established there. Mithril was abundant in that area and was incredibly valuable. It was said that the mithril coat that Bilbo gave Frodo was worth more than the Shire and all of its contents. So Moria was already a place of interest for the dwarves due to its mining potential, but it gained even more importance after they connected it to the lost Dwarven Ring of Power. And just to understand the magnitude of that connection, the 7 dwarf rings amplified their wearers' natural talents and thirst for power, making them both insatiably greedy and unimaginably wealthy. So when that was paired with the lure of the most valuable substance in all of Middle-earth, it's no wonder that the dwarves were desperate to find it. But the part of their quest involving the finding of the ring was in vain, as Gandalf reveals to Glóin. Balin will find no ring in Moria, said Gandalf. Thror gave it to Thrain his son, but not Thrain to Thorin. It was taken with torment from Thrain in the dungeons of Dol Guldur. I came too late. Gandalf's words here stood out to me because it's hard to understand why he didn't tell the dwarves years earlier that Sauron had taken the Ring of Durin from Thrain. That seems like information the dwarves should absolutely know so they wouldn't go looking for it or fall for lies about its location. I still think the lure of Mithril in Moria would have been more than enough reason for them to try and retake Khazad-dûm, but at least they wouldn't be searching for the ring pointlessly. And I doubt that Gandalf didn't tell them out of secrecy because he just casually says it after Glóin mentions Balin trying to find the ring again. I can't imagine that Gandalf wouldn't think that this information is important. After all, his whole purpose of being in Middle-earth is to help the Free Peoples defeat Sauron. Also, he had the perfect opportunity to tell the dwarves this. Right after the White Council drove Sauron out of Dol Guldur, Gandalf traveled to the Lonely Mountain as the Battle of 5 Armies was about to begin, and both Thorin and Dane Ironfoot were there. Now Thorin dies from his wounds during the battle, but Dane goes on to replace him as king under the mountain. Why Gandalf didn't mention it to him leaves readers scratching their heads. Could this be one of those rare times of oversight from Tolkien? Or do you think that Gandalf had reasons for not telling the dwarves then? Well, the most likely reason for Gandalf's silence may actually have been revealed early on in The Hobbit as the company met in Bag End to plan their conspiracy to retake Erebor, and Gandalf explains to Thorin how he got the key to the mountain. Your grandfather, said the wizard slowly and grimly, gave the map to his son for safety before he went to the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed, and lots of adventures of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there, I don't know, but I found him a prisoner in the dungeons of the Necromancer. Whatever were you doing there? Asked Thorin with a shudder, and all the dwarves shivered. Never you mind. I was finding things out, as usual. And a nasty, dangerous business it was. Even I, Gandalf, only just escaped. I tried to save your father, but it was too late. He was witless and wandering, and had forgotten almost everything except the map and the key. We have long ago paid the goblins of Moria, said Thorin. We must give a thought to the Necromancer. Don't be absurd. He is an enemy quite beyond the powers of all the dwarves put together, if they could all be collected again from the 4 corners of the world. This passage reveals the dwarves' desire for revenge against Sauron and all those who have wronged them. Dwarves are a very proud people and carry a chip on their shoulder when they feel that they have been disrespected. Perhaps this is why Gandalf did not tell any of the Dwarf Lords that Sauron had taken the ring from Thrain while he was a prisoner in Dol Guldur. Gandalf may have feared that this information would be too much for the dwarves to stand, and that they would act out of emotion and wage war with Sauron. This would have been a devastating turn of events because the dwarves, though brave and formidable, would have stood no chance against the might of Sauron, especially in his stronghold of Mordor. A premature assault, driven by grief and rage, would have likely led in the ruin of their kingdoms and the death of many of their greatest warriors, weakening the fragile alliances among the Free Peoples at a critical moment. Gandalf, ever the strategist, may have understood that timing was everything in the fight against Sauron. If the dwarves had learned that one of their sacred 7 rings had been taken and defiled, their response would not have been measured, it would have been vengeful, and a war waged in vengeance rather than wisdom could have ended with the dwarves playing directly into Sauron's hands. Not only would they have failed to recover the ring, but their destruction would have further tipped the balance of power in the Dark Lord's favor. In this light, Gandalf's silence appears less like an oversight and more like a grim necessity. He may have judged that withholding the truth was the lesser of 2 evils, and that preserving the dwarves' strength was essential for the larger war to come. Revealing too much, too soon, could spark a war that Middle-earth could not afford. Gandalf was very likely aware of how prideful the dwarves can be and how they don't forget things easily. We even see this later on in the story as the Fellowship of the Ring makes its way toward Moria. "Well, here we are at last," said Gandalf. "Here the elven way from Holland ended. Holly was the token of the people of that land, and they planted it here to mark the end of their domain, for the west door was made chiefly for their use in their traffic with the lords of Moria. Those were happier days, when there was still close friendship at times between folk of different race, even between dwarves and elves." "It was not the fault of the dwarves that the friendship waned," said Gimli. "I have not heard that it was the fault of the elves," said Legolas. "I have heard both," said Gandalf, "and I will not give judgment now." By the way, this entire theory of Gandalf's worry of revenge is immediately backed up by Glóin's response to him after finding out that the Ring of Durin is lost to Sauron forever. "Ah, alas," cried Glóin, "when will the day come of our revenge? But still there are the 3. What of the 3 rings of the elves? Very mighty rings, it is said. Do not the elf lords keep them? Yet they too were made by the Dark Lord long ago. Are they idle? I see elf lords here. Will they not say?" The elves returned no answer. "Did you not hear me, Glóin?" said Elrond. "The 3 were not made by Sauron, nor did he ever touch them. But of them it is not permitted to speak. So much only in this hour of doubt I may now say. They are not idle, but they were not made as weapons of war or conquest. That is not their power. Those who made them did not desire strength or domination or hoarded wealth, but understanding, making, and healing, to preserve all things unstained. These things the elves of Middle-earth have in some measure gained, though with sorrow. But all that has been wrought by those who wield the 3 will turn to their undoing, and their minds and hearts will become revealed to Sauron, if he regains the 1. It would be better if the 3 had never been. That is his purpose." "But then what would happen if the ruling ring were destroyed, as you counsel?" asked Glóin. "We know not for certain," answered Elrond sadly. "Some hope that the 3 rings, which Sauron has never touched, would then become free, and their rulers might heal the hurts of the world that he has wrought. But maybe when the 1 is gone, the 3 will fail, and many fair things will fade and be forgotten. That is my belief." In this passage, we see Elrond leading Glóin, and by extension the reader, toward a sobering realization. None of the lesser rings of power, not even the 3, can counter the darkness of the One Ring. Elrond emphasizes that the 3 were not made for war or dominion, but for preservation, healing, and understanding. And yet, despite their purity, even the 3 are bound to the fate of the 1. Their power, their beauty, and even the good they've accomplished are all vulnerable to corruption if the One Ring remains. There are no shortcuts to defeating evil. While Glóin likely found little comfort in Elrond's words, he might have taken some solace in knowing that Balin had never found the lost ring of Durin. Had he succeeded, it would have only exposed him to Sauron, just as the Dark Lord was nearing the height of his power. Though dwarves cannot be turned into ring wraiths, and are more resistant to the ring's corrupting influence, they are not immune. The rings awaken greed and pride in them, driving actions that, in the end, advance Sauron's own dark designs. Which brings us to a fascinating question. What became of the souls of men who were turned into ring wraiths after the destruction of the One Ring? For the full answer, be sure to check out the video I made diving into that very topic. Link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.